Okay, everyone. So here we are for another lockdown conversation. And it's an interesting time to be doing this because in the UK, we're kind of almost out of lockdown, but not quite where we expected to be. And we're kind of not quite sure where we should be or where we are. And so there's still a sense of training and finding ways to train in still changeable times kind of in the background in our daily lives. So these lockdown conversations still feel important to to explore and connect with other people. And today I have George Thompson, who many of you may have seen um, in his Tea Time Towers and George Thompson YouTube channel, and most recently his film. And George, welcome to Lockdown Conversations.
Thank you, Giles. Pleasure to be here. And yeah, love what you're doing and everyone on their journey in the UK, exploring Tai Chi and all these wonderful healing arts. So happy to be with you.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to discover you over the last couple of years and follow you because I think the community of Wudang practitioners in the UK is very small. There are only a handful of schools over the UK, and also there's a general tendency for Wudang practice YouTube presence to be created by people who have trained for a very long time. They're very inspiring to watch, but the journey of how you get from a beginning point to move in such fluid and graceful and beautiful control ways, it's a bit of an anathema to many people, a bit of a mystery to many people. And I always thought there needs to be more people chronicling that journey forwards, and to see how those kind of small stepping stones of change occur in response to what situations and factors. And lo and behold, a fellow Brit has been doing exactly that. So could you introduce yourself to the viewers and kind of describe your journey? How did you find Wudang initially, and what were your steps into an intense form of Wudang practice with a master?
Yeah, so I finished university and left the structures of formal education, and in the big bad real world found it was more difficult than I had imagined. I started working for myself. I started a YouTube channel, and the reality of that was me procrastinating in my room, beating myself up for not feeling good enough. And so I quickly, despite not much of the external world changing, descended into the kind of the toughest mental health crisis that had been in my life so far. So anxiety, unable to get up, just feeling sick and anxious all day, and just kind of losing my energy for life. And I said to myself, if I can't handle this, basically being by myself for a month, then how am I going to handle the big stuff that's going to inevitably hit me in future life? So I realized I needed to learn how to be kinder to myself, and I set off on a journey. I had watched in university some Kung Fu monks doing crazy flips, and I thought, hey, maybe that would be good for me. Some Kung Fu, I'll get into my body, get some discipline, and maybe some meditation might help as well. And I'm sure your students will know the two most famous types of Kung Fu in China is Shaolin and Wudang. And I looked at both, but Wudang looked more attractive to me because it had this more internal cultivation. There's kind of more meditative, and I was a bit of a softie and still am. So I thought potentially, rather than bashing blocks with my wrists, maybe some meditation and Kung Fu could help me. So yeah, I set off to China and I arrived in the Wudang Mountains, and with very little research, I arrive at one of the monasteries, one of the temples, a Purple Cloud Temple. And I go up, there's kind of the main temple, it's a wooden palace with the kind of curly roof. And then to the right of the main palace is this courtyard where the monks live. I go into this kind of open double large gate, walk through. On the other side of the courtyard is an old monk sweeping the floor. I go up to her and I say, Tai Chi, Gong Fu. And she just says, Wabudong. I don't understand. Shakes her head and just, beckons me to go away. I tried that again with a few other monks and very quickly realized that I'm not getting anywhere with this approach. And I later find out that although these monks do practice Tai Chi and do practice these arts, it wasn't a Kung Fu monastery. It wasn't something that a foreigner could just turn up to. So I turned to plan B. If I couldn't learn Kung Fu in a monastery, I'd try to learn in a Kung Fu school. And so I enlisted the locals as my guides to help me with my Google Translate. I said Kung Fu school. One of the locals volunteered to help me, and they took me to a small Tai Chi school. And that Tai Chi school was run by my master, Master Gu. And it just so happened that Master Gu was the only fluent English-speaking master in the whole of the Wudang Mountains. I arrived completely unplanned, and he says to me, like, I don't teach Kung Fu, but I teach Tai Chi. Now, in my ignorance, I thought Tai Chi was a sport for older people, and I was a bit unsure about it. I was kind of expecting to do some kicks and smashing things up, but I gave it a go and fell in love with it. And I had this just very special opportunity to be guided into this wonderful culture of Taoism and Tai Chi by Master Gu, who could speak English. And so for someone who was really just knowing nothing about it, I managed to get quite deep quite quickly. And also finding Taoism, reading the Tao Te Ching, and the sort of the synthesis between the mental and the physical and the spiritual, all of these, I was just offered lots of different ways of being, different ways of thinking, exercises that could help me come into my body. I discovered the power of the breath, which I really didn't have any sort of understanding that I could use that as a tool to help me stay calm and to help me, rebalance and recenter. And so, yeah, it's been a journey of discovery ever since. I'm 4 years into it now, and yeah, mainly Taoism is the thing that I explore and talk about on my YouTube channel. So that is the kind of the philosophy, but certainly like Qigong and Tai Chi, these are practices that I use every day to help generate energy, help me reground and recenter on a daily basis. So yeah, I'd say that my story is a serendipitous one where kind of I opened my intention up to the universe and it gave something back. And also a journey of discovery, of learning how I work, my nature, and how I relate to nature more generally, which has helped me live more kindly and be kinder to myself, and live with more energy with all these wonderful practices that you and your students will also practice.
That's amazing. I really like the element of chance. It's almost like the I Ching, isn't it? It's almost like your arrival in Wudang is like a load of prayer sticks being thrown up in the air, and the person you ended up speaking to rather than another person led you to a chain of relational events, and you found your master's school. And a lot of some of my other colleagues who have very established kind of teaching careers, set up their own schools, had the similar moments where they arrived in China and ended up in Wudangshan, or arrived in Wudangshan, and they found their teacher in not a goal-directed kind of top-down way. It's really, it really does feel like that's an inevitable and necessary part of just finding your piece of the jigsaw amongst the whole Wudang community. It's really fascinating. Yes. How this happens. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. There's when Master Gu would have friends around for dinner, they'd say to me, so you two met through Yuanfen, and Yuanfen is the word for destiny. And for them, it's as tangible as meeting down the pub. It's just obvious for them that, something was aligned to connect the two of us.
Yeah.